there's nothing more flawed than camp stats. But as far as what did we want to see today from Brock, and to me, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I feel really strongly about this. If Brock had come out and gone 10 for 10, but his ball wobbled and it didn't quite reach the sideline, and he was underthrowing the receivers down the field, and it looked like his arm was maybe, let's say, even 90% of what it was last year, I would be way more negative than if he had a day that he actually had, which was he completed 3 of 10. He had two that he hit Jennings and Kittle on the hands, and they just dropped it. Normally they would make those catches. So he was roughly 5 of 10, but let's just say what it actually was, which was 3 of 10 with, but Brock, unlike Darnold and Lance and Allen, was like, he kind of knew what people wanted to see. And I don't know if it was, when I say people, if he was talking about us, the media, or us, the fans, or the Niner coaches, or his teammates, but he was like, I'm taking shots down the field. I'm letting it rip. And he went up top to Debo, overthrew him by like 5 yards. And I think when I'm watching that, I don't know who was standing next to me. I think it was Guy Haberman. I said to him, I'm like, you know what? When you're going deep, the last thing you want to put on film is that you underthrew the deep ball when you're coming off the elbow surgery. So he's probably not even really trying to connect as much as he just wants to outthrow the receiver. So he threw 2 just absolute, go route deep balls and overthrew both receivers. And then he threw a deep ball in the middle of the field that should have been caught by Ayuk, but it was high and it went off his hands, or maybe went over him. But those 3 balls showed, I think, almost better looking arm strength than I saw from him at any point at Iowa State or last year. So I look at it as a huge, great day for Brock Purdy. Why? Because he absolutely had great zip on his passes, and he threw the deep ball well, and he showed a bigger arm than he showed last year. And then when we talked to him after the practice, he was in a great frame of mind, and he was like, hey, I wanted to let it rip, and I went to Jacksonville. You guys knew we talked about this. He went back to Jacksonville, a couple weeks ago, to kind of work with those same 2 coaches. One's a doctor, one's a coach, I believe. And that's where he was like, one, make sure his mechanics were refined before he really let it rip. And that was the term he used today. He's like, I went to Jacksonville, and I asked him about it. I go, what was that return trip to Jacksonville like? And he's like, hey, I just wanted to go there and work with those guys again. And before I really let it rip, I wanted to make sure that I was doing it the right way, and the right way mechanically, and with a doctor right there and the coach right there and that kind of thing. So he kind of explained it, and his mindset with all the other answers that he gave was so calm, so confident, that I looked at today as just an overwhelming positive day. And the players who went to the podium after the practice kind of, they agreed, thought that it was a great day for Purdy. And then I'm reading some of the, the reviews. It's like, really bad day for Purdy. And if he looks like this, he won't be able to start, and all this. And it's like, wait a second, guys, we know that Brock is the highest percentage thrower. He's the highest completion percentage guy of Trey, Sam, and Allen. He's the guy that throws with the best timing of those 3 quarterbacks. He's the guy that throws with the best touch. He's the guy that has all the ability to complete. Brock's a 67, 68% completion percentage guy. Trey is like around in the 50s. Darnold and Allen are not a whole lot. They're definitely lower than Brock. So I didn't need a high percentage. I needed to see no diminished arm talent. And that's what I saw. So from my perspective, I thought today was hugely successful. And it just seems to me that the people that didn't saw it the other way, I would accuse them of moving the goalposts. It's like, if this guy was rag armed and completed 9 of 10, you'd be sitting there going, you know what? His arm looked kind of weak, but 3 of 10, and he showed a big arm, and it was like, yeah, but he barely completed anything, and he threw an interception, and he was 3 of 10. So what is it? Is it completion percentage you want to see or arm strength? For me, I wanted to see arm strength, and I saw it, so I felt good.
Vish, based off of what you've heard from Larry and heard from Twitter and everything else that has come through today, how do you feel just as a outside of observer about Brock and his first day back?
I think this is kind of what we expected with him coming back, right? This is conversations we had this offseason. And I think a lot of the conversations just didn't trend this way because we didn't expect him to come back this early. But we constantly talked about, hey, what happens when he comes back if he only has 2 weeks to practice? Because this is how I thought it would look. When I was talking about it, I thought this is how it would look. Now, the nice thing for him is that he has come back, 2 weeks earlier than anybody expected. So we're hoping for gradual improvement. But I agree with what Krug said. There were two important things for Brock Purdy to show in this practice. And I do think he showed them both. One was that he was fully healthy and the arm wasn't bothering him. And then two, that he could make it out of the practice healthy. He did both of those things. Now, he didn't play well in the practice, right? It sounds like he had a poor day in terms of completing passes and stuff like that. Well, that's a bad practice. If this continues, then yeah, we need to have a larger problem about it. Right now, I think it's just the first practice of a guy who's rusty and has not played football for a long time, and that's kind of where we are. Now, I will add to this by saying that there was a dichotomy pointed out specifically by my man Marco Martinez, shout out to him, in some of the coverage from the Niners beat and how they covered this situation with Brock Purdy versus not even you, Crew, just the beat specifically, the guys who were the reporters, not the columnist / YouTube host / analyst / part-time radio host /
Pig in a pickle.
Pig in a pickle sponsor. But those guys, in terms of how they covered the two situations, and I will say I 100% agree. There are certain gripes I have with it, but what I will say is that I'm not going to compensate because I think Trey Lance was covered unfairly and covered Brock Purdy unfairly in this situation. I think for a guy returning from injury, this was a reasonable expectation. The most important thing is, one, he looks healthy, and two, he made it out of the practice healthy. The rest of it, we're going to have opportunities to discuss as camp continues. We'll see him in the preseason, all of that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I said yesterday with Grant, and I'm sure I said it during the call-in show last night that I had, was we've got to be patient with Brock. You can't just expect him to come in day one, fresh off of trying to get his arm back with really no competition reps and just expect that it's going to look incredible. He's going to be completing all of his throws and everything's going to be on track and look amazing. That's not a fair expectation. I agree with Vish and Marco, who brought it up earlier, that just be consistent. My biggest thing is I'm not here to dictate how people cover the team. They can cover the team and the players however they want. It is their prerogative. I would just ask for consistency. And I'm not saying consistency across the board because everybody covers the team differently. I mean it from the stance of however you covered Trey Lance in the OTAs when he struggled and was coming off of an injury. I want you to give that same energy to Brock. So if you covered it and said, hey, he's coming back from an injury, he deserves grace, I'm encouraged because the mechanics look good, then do the same thing for Brock. Be encouraged, not necessarily based off the stats, but like Krug said, he came back from injury, made it through practice, the arm strength is there, everything else should fall into place. However, if you trashed Lance and said, oh, he can't even do it in t-shirts and shorts and didn't give him any grace, then keep that same energy for Purdy. However you decide to cover the team or talk about the team and its players, just make sure that energy is the same. That's all I ask. But I would say that based off of what I'm hearing, agree with Vish that maybe the practice wasn't good as far as the completion percentage, and if he had to start a game tomorrow, would you be excited or ready to go? No, but they don't have to start a game tomorrow. So I gave Trey Lance grace. I'm going to give Purdy the same grace in my coverage and say, hey, sounds like the arm strength is there. The accuracy was not there today. That will come together. Everything is going to be fine. Give him time to get back into things, shake off the rust, and we'll see a week from now. If every day for the next 5 practices look like this, okay, we can start to have a conversation. I don't expect that to be the case. So let's just make sure that whatever the energy is that we brought for one, we bring that same energy for everybody. And as long as we're doing that, I'm good to go.
Yeah, I just, if Brock Purdy completes 30% of his passes, we got a problem.
Sure, yeah, of course.
We got a problem. But we have a bigger problem. I mean, to me, okay, do you really think that's a problem though? I mean, do you really believe that Brock Purdy's the guy who's got the highest completion percentage of these 4 quarterbacks that are competing, just because on the first day coming back from a off season where he didn't play a whole lot, completes 30% with a couple of uncharacteristic drops. He's, and when he didn't get an off season with his guys, with his receivers, I'll take that every day, because what I was really afraid of is that we were going to see him laboring, really working his throws. Like in the warm-up, guys, I was a little nervous because I felt like there was a little bit more body movement and a little bit more effort in his throws, and the throws were a little wobblier than what I saw last summer. And I felt like, and there was a one drill where they're kind of shuffling towards the sideline, and then they're shuffling back from the sideline. They're throwing, and Brock wasn't even throwing a ball; he was just throwing against air. Right, the other guys all had a ball, and I was like, well, wait a second, how? This is not a good sign. Does that mean that he can't? What can't he do? And this is at the beginning of practice. I'm thinking, man, if he's in that part where he can't even throw a ball here, then maybe this is a really bad sign. But then as the practice went on, he was being treated, he was getting he was getting most of the first team reps, and he showed great zip on his passes, and it didn't look like he had to muscle it up or extra body motion. So as I said before, I was really pleasantly surprised, because I was really prepared for, like Shanahan or Lynch said, hey, we put the GPS monitor on him and the arm speed was the same. I don't know if you heard that, but I asked Lynch that question a couple days ago. Mm-hmm. And I, because to me, that's like it, right? It's like, if you can say he looks good, everybody can say all the right things, but if he goes out there and he's throwing 45 miles an hour and it's beneath NFL average speed, then and I know that DBs will be able to break on his ball, and he won't be able to fit it in those tight windows that the NFL has. And I've said it, we've all said it. Brock doesn't have arm strength to lose. So if he lost any, that was going to be a concern. And at least based on what I saw today, and that was just, it's a snapshot, right? I mean, who knows? Let's check it out tomorrow. Let's check it out the day after. But there was 2 or 3 things that I thought were key today. One was the way he threw it, the velocity. He really had some great zip on the pass. But then he also was asked afterwards about, hey, are you having any soreness? Are you having any, 2 days in a row? Or how's it feel? And that kind of thing. And he's like, all the pain and all the stiffness and all the soreness is out. And so we're talking about a guy who had surgery in March, and here we are, it's July, and he's on the field with the ones. So I thought there was a very good chance he would start this camp on the PUP, and that maybe August 15th, something like that, August 20th, somewhere in there, they would take him off the PUP and maybe try to kind of rush him back for week 1 against the Steelers. And then we would be this like 11th hour thing. Is he ready? Is he not? I thought that's the way it was going to go, but clearly he's ahead of schedule, and he did all the things today that would tell you that his arm strength is at least as good, if not better. I mean, the other thing is we're dealing with a young player who's getting bigger, stronger, and normally without this injury, you would expect him to get a little bit better, right? He's a year 2 in the system, a little bit stronger, NFL weight room, biggest improvement you physically see in football players is typically year 1 to year 2. So like there's reasons to think that he would improve physically. And then the elbow surgery was reasons to believe that he would be diminished physically. And like, where would it meet? And to me, He looks a little bit better physically than what I remember him from last year, but it was just day one. But then hearing him talk about his process and how his body's feeling, I thought that was the other positive. So, but, once again, if he completes 30% of his passes, we're going to have a problem.